right, welcome back to the Command Your Brand Show. I'm your host, Josh Silvestro, brand ambassador of Command Your Brands, where we help CEOs and founders get on top-rated podcasts. You can definitely check us out at commandyourbrand.com and also check out our new book, bestpodcastbook.com, which you can definitely check us out and learn a bit about us, who we are, what we do, and how we can help you. So in today's episode, I have a very special guest speaker who I'd love to talk to about this subject who, we live in a day and age where everything's just all AI, and how can we make AI work for us and what we can do in our marketing, our sales, every aspect of our business, and how can we use it to the best of our abilities. So here I'm with an expert kind of guest here who really wants to talk about this and really talk about his company, Media Lab. So please let me introduce you guys to Niko. Niko, thanks for joining the show, man.
No, thanks for having me.
Yeah. So I guess what we'll first start off with, for people who don't know who you are, because I know we spoke a little bit together, tell us a little bit about yourself, where you're from, and then why you started the company, Media Lab. I'm very curious.
Yeah. So my name is Niko. So I'm originally French. I was born and raised in France, moved to Sydney, Australia about 15 years ago. And I've started Media Lab about a year ago. And what happened is I've spent about 15 years in B2B marketing and decided to kind of like take some time away from, I guess, the corporate life. So I've started my consulting business and started to kind of do some consulting work for a SDR agency. And my main kind of goal was to actually build a portfolio of digital services for these specific clients. And then by doing some research, I really wanted to kind of come up with services that were very kind of transparent. So having spent 15 years in B2B marketing, I came across some specific kind of companies and providers where there was always a lot of black box versus kind of glass box kind of thing, where it was like, oh, we're doing this and this and this, and this is a little bit of magic. We're just picking up those signals. So I decided to do a little bit of research out there, and I came across a platform called clay.com, which is ultimately a data enrichment and a GTM orchestration tool. And I think from there, like the company kind of like just was kind of started out of this, because I was like, this is going to revolutionize the go-to-market space in general. So initially, we've started Media Lab as a Clay implementation partner, and then as soon as we kind of started to get our first kind of few clients on board, realized that there was a lot more to do in terms of like automation and bringing AI into the way that tech companies are taking their product and solution to market. So this is how we've kind of started Media Lab a little bit about a year ago.
Wow, amazing. And so, for you, and I know a lot of people who are listening, we're in this kind of moment now where, we think about starting our own business, and because we're working in another corporate job or we have another job that we're working, but we really want to pursue our passions in life. I guess what gave you the click moment? What gave you that decision moment to really just, I'm going to move forward with my own business rather be in the corporate world? Because I know you've been around that area probably for several years for you. What made you decide to kind of move from one corporate job to now your own company?
Yeah, look, I feel like I need to be transparent on this. I think I've been quite lucky, because I think I'm one of those people that I've always wanted to start my own business. And it was always in the back of my mind, but I've always had roles where, I've worked in sales. In my last role, I was looking after APAC and North America from here in Sydney. So, I was starting, I think I had a team in New Zealand that's starting from, Monday, 5 a.m. and I would work until Saturday, kind of midday when Seattle would go to bed kind of thing. So I've never really had that time to kind of actually, put myself into a room and go, okay, well, what is the business that I'm going to start? And I've been lucky enough that my last role, I've kind of like the company was kind of changing directions, and ultimately I had the opportunity to kind of take some time for me. And I was, at the time, I was going to take 6 months off, and I was kind of thinking about, okay, what's next? Like, do I just like take some time to focus on, hobbies and passion, or do I start thinking about what I'm going to do for the next 20 years? And I think having the ability to not being in the grind of just, your 9 to 5 or chasing, the next target, it gave me the ability to actually meet with people and just like think about ideas. And I think I've just been lucky enough when I've started my consulting business. I was working across like 5 to 10 clients. And I was meeting a lot of people. And I think from that moment, a lot of ideas kind of came up. And I think I've just been lucky because I was in that position when I've started working with this consulting client, and this opportunity for Media Lab kind of came across. I was in the situations where I could actually go, you know what, I'm going to take the next 6 months to give it a good go, which I would have never been able to do if I was in a full kind of a corporate job. So yeah, I guess the short answer is I think I was just lucky to be in that positions where I could take the time to go, you know what, I'm going to focus on this project. And I think it was quite a bit of an eye opener for me because I was always on the other side of the fence, which is kind of like, okay, what is that business idea? How do I kind of come across that business idea? And I think that in that kind of situation for Media Lab, the business idea came to me, and luckily I was in a position where I could go, you know what, this is it. Like this is what I'm going to be focusing my time in the next 20 years. If that make any sense?
Yeah. That's amazing. Yeah, and I think it's really cool, and it's very, I can see you're very passionate about like a lot of this stuff of what you're doing here, and just I guess for you, because you obviously are in the workaday world in your own company, you're really just fending off, and you're actually you're lessening the confusions of the world, and you're helping people in business, right? What do you find? Who do you work with? Like, what are some people that you work with that that really needs a Media Lab? Like, who are the people that come to you for?
Yeah, so look, it's funny you ask this because it's a bit of a mix at the moment, in the sense that we're still trying to figure out like what I call our ICP, so our ideal kind of customer profile, and at the moment, like we're working with small startups that are literally still in that kind of 0 to 1 mil in terms of ARR. Yeah. And be also working with, large kind of tech company, right? So, we work with the like of Sage and F5, and a few like big, we're talking like multi-billion kind of dollar kind of tech company. Yeah. And obviously they've got different needs, because if you think about your, kind of founder-led startup where the founder is still kind of doing sales, marketing, like delivery, like pretty much looking after everything, versus like company where, I work with some tech company where the marketing team globally is probably about, a few hundred people. So the need in terms of like resource, planning, even like just strategy is very different. But typically the sweet spot for us is probably kind of tech company, what I call scale up. So, anywhere from your kind of 25 mil in ARR all the way to 500 mil. But I think the most important for us is the clients we work with the most are the clients that are looking at, big kind of growth goals. So typically you're, 3x in 3 years, or in that kind of flower end. Sometimes it's even more like, how do you kind of, go from 500K to 5 mil in revenue within the next kind of 12 month kind of thing. I think the growth for us is typically where we can go, okay, you're trying to grow very quickly. This is where we can help.
Nice. That's very cool. I know for you, you've also, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, I know in Media Lab, you also help with AI and like, helping generate and also doing a lot of like automation of things, right? In the company. Now, I guess for you, have you found, because obviously you've worked with a lot of people and probably helped a lot of people with automating with AI and things like that. And some people know it and some people don't know it. You know what I mean? So a lot of people don't know it. But what do you find were some like key mistakes people did with using AI in their business, and like what they should be doing?
I think for me, the main mistakes that people make is probably about it's almost trying to kind of get it perfect from day one. Because the reality with what we do when we start integrating AI into, and so by the way, so when we talk about AI from a go-to-market perspective, we use AI to kind of like automate. How do you identify your next clients? We also use AI in the way that we build automated outreach. So it's like kind of like automating your outbound kind of motion. And we also use AI into building kind of personalizing your kind of messages to your audience. And I think sometimes people are trying to kind of get it absolutely perfect, like, and then they won't go live or they won't kind of test the water until everything kind of is absolutely perfect. The reality is like, that's almost the wrong way to look at it, because you need AI to make mistakes to kind of get better. And that's across the board, right? So if I look at what we do as a business, is typically the first thing we look at is like, how do we define your ideal customer profile? And so most companies come to us and say, oh, well, my ideal customer profile is online retailers with, that amount of visitors. And they're very kind of static in the way they define their ICP. And for me, it's like, well, what about we try to identify specific patterns and behavior that your ICP is currently showing. And so then we can start using AI to identify signals. And realistically, the size of the size of the business you're selling to doesn't become irrelevant, don't get me wrong, because you still, if you've got an enterprise software solution, like there's no way trying to kind of like engage with an SMB audience. But at the same time, sometimes people are a little bit too rigid in the way they define the ICP. So what we do is you always try to take a bit of a step back and go, hey, what about we start looking at the patterns or the specific signals? We can go, well, if someone has just raised, $10 million, that's probably a good indicator that they're going to be investing in XYZ. And it doesn't matter if they're like on the lowest side of your ICP, because they've just raised a bunch of money that is telling us that's a great signal for you as a SaaS company to kind of go and target them. And that's just one example, right? It could be, we do a lot of work around hiring patterns. So what we do is we use AI to kind of track hiring behavior. So typically as a business, if you're hiring, whether it's salespeople or marketing people or technical people, that can give us an indications of, well, if you're hiring those kind of roles, you're probably growing or you're probably trying to kind of build something new. So depending on the solution that you're marketing to those people, that could be a good indicator to go, hey, this account should be part of your ICP because they're showing the right behavior.
Interesting. So people should never expect, I guess what you're saying is basically don't expect AI to work the first time perfect as you set it up. And there's going to be changes as you progress and as you learn, as the AI is learning from what the customer wants or what you guys need or what anything like that.
Yeah, and sometimes the way I kind of explain it is like, usually AI is only going to make a mistake once. Mm-hmm. So, but if you don't let AI make that first mistake, they're never going to learn from it. So it's almost like you kind of need to let the AI make the mistake, and then from that mistake, they go, okay, well, this is not the right way, and then it just becomes better and better and better. But if you try to get it perfect, ultimately, if you try to get it perfect, it's not AI, it's workflow automation, or you're trying to kind of like identify all the different possibility, which is kind of the opposite of what AI is. If that makes sense?
Yeah. Interesting. Yeah, because I know a lot of people, especially now in companies, between, voice calls and, AI chatbots to like on websites, right? They're always trying to get it perfect. And sometimes you'll find that there's mistakes, but they kind of learn. You have to let them make mistakes so that they can learn and they can actually function properly. Because it's like, if they're trying to be perfect the first time, that's never going to happen, because they're robots. They're not really real people, but, it's kind of like you have to let them do it.
Yeah. And I think for me as well, it's just, the reality is like, we're still people selling to people, right? When we help a tech company engaging with an audience, the reality is like, you still have people on one side selling a solution or software to other people, right? So you kind of need to kind of let that process of like, almost like human behavior. And
Yeah.
human do learn. If you think about the way you've learned as a kid, the reality is like, you typically learn by making the mistakes. And if your mom and dad don't try to kind of keep you away from making those mistakes, typically you don't learn as quickly. And
That's true.
it's just
Yeah.
a
Yeah.
it takes you back, I guess. But
Yeah.
if you know what I mean.
Yeah. It's very fascinating because what I think is also too is like, we have to use, we're now in the age where everyone sort of just uses AI in some shape or form. And it's like, everyone should know the ability of how to do it. And I guess for you, because obviously you help people with a lot of different areas of AI and marketing, I assume, right? And so for you, what do you find is like, people should be doing in like marketing or anything like that with AI? Like, what do you think that would be a more powerful tool for people that, because I'm sure a lot of people, what they really want to do is they want to, market themselves and get themselves more. Because, ultimately AI is used to help us make money. That's kind of the basic of it, right? So how can we use it better to make money from our business standpoint in marketing and sales, anything like that? I know it's a big
Yes.
question.
No, it's it's an interesting one. And I think and I don't want to kind of give you a too vague of an answer, but for
Yeah.
me, it's almost like, my biggest tip would be hire AI native.
Hmm.
Because uh, so Media Lab ultimately is a team, is a bunch of like GTM and AI engineer that kind of almost, we're born with AI. So I feel like the average age across my GTM engineering team is probably about mid-20s. And so at the moment, like, my biggest, I guess, not concern, but probably focus is like, how do I make sure I bring the right people into the team? And typically for me, it's like, we need to hire critical thinkers. We need to hire people that almost were born with AI, even if it's a bit of a stretch. But um, if especially if you're in a position of, if you're a founder of a company, or if you're in that kind of stage, we're trying to kind of get away from corporate world to kind of start your own business. For me, it's like, I've learned so much by, even just through interview process, like talking to people just come out of university with a AI engineering kind of degree, and they just look at it in a different way. Because typically, me, with the experience that I have, I try to embed AI into what already exists, right? So you've got your business, it's working, it could be profitable. And I'm having a lot of discussions at the moment with, CROs and CEOs and head of customer experience and CMOs, and they're all in the same, they've been in business for 20, 30 years, and they're being told that they need to spend money on AI. So I was having a discussion the other day with a CMO of a large tech company, and they were like, okay, well, they've been mandated by the board that they now have to report on how much money they're spending on AI, how much money they're spending on like AI training across their team. And so they're looking at this and going, I don't know where to start. But they're still looking at it from a lens of, how do I bring AI into what I'm currently doing? I think this is the wrong way to look at it. We need to kind of flip the coin and go, no, let's start from scratch. AI should be the center of whatever you build in your business. And I'm still, even me, which I kind of feel like I'm in a positions where I'm not an AI expert, but I feel like I understand AI very well, and I've surrounded myself with like AI native. And it's still hard for me to kind of go, no, you're looking at it the wrong way. You're looking at bringing AI into what you're currently doing. You need to think about it from start with AI, and then the kind of build a business from an AI centric perspective.
Nice. It's very fascinating because a lot of people, I think what people need to do is and some people, I don't know, some people are like, oh, AI is too complicated. I can't really do AI. AI is just way too much for me to know, and I can't really sit down and have the time to do it. Like, what do you think for people? What do you think they should do with AI? If now we're coming in the age of, okay, like here's AI, now use it. And it's kind of like, and especially like what you mentioned, like there's people who are like, now I must know how much you're spending, how much you're using, what are they learning? What do you recommend for people, especially like people who are listening to this, they're all new CEOs and founders, or they're just trying to learn what AI is. Like, where is the best place they can learn and use AI, do you think?
I think again, it's a hard question because I feel like it kind of depends of how you learn. Um, I'm probably one of those people that I like to learn on the tools a little bit. For me, it's kind of like I kind of need to see how it works and I need to play around with like different solutions. So I think my biggest recommendation would be just like give it a go. It's like whether it's like, ChatGPT or whether it's like using the AI tools that you've got across, your Google Workspace or your Microsoft Workspace, whatever you're using currently. I think now everybody's kind of starting to pull AI into their existing platform. I think for me, just like start building stuff. Like, that you've got the Replit of the world where you can pretty much now build, an app from a chat GPT style kind of like UI. I think for me, it's like just give it a go. Just like try to build something using AI. And I think because typically what happened is when you start building things, you're gonna come across things where you won't understand. And I think it's easier to start researching based on the things you don't understand if you're on the tools rather than, and there's so many kind of like courses out there. And I feel like for me, it's like, I'm never, even if I went to uni, but I've never been a big academic. And I think for me, sitting in a room for like hours or weeks or months to learn about AI, I think for me, it's a waste of time. It's just not the way I learn. But if you give me like a full weekend when I can just like geek out and just like try to build something using AI, I think you learn so much more.
Yeah.
And again, like you're going to learn so much more because you're going to make mistakes and you're going to get to a point you go, oh, I don't know, how do I go from there? Even building a website these days, like you can literally like go onto, Wix or Webflow or Shopify and you can pretty much build a website from scratch using AI.
And you just the words, your prompts, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's pretty wild.
Yeah, it is, which is exciting.
Yeah. And so I guess, because you've obviously dealt with, and I guess I love from you, maybe we'll go into this more. Like, I'd love to hear some successes from you. You've helped people in the, the area where you're in Media Lab. Where have you helped people the most? I love to just hear a story from you about that.
Yeah. And I think for us, typically like the way that people look at success from what we do is typically around kind of like driving demand, driving pipeline and revenue. So I've worked with a client that was probably on the kind of the lower end of your kind of scale up, in the sense that they were still kind of bootstrapping the business and they were like, we need more business to grow. But it was almost like they were like, so typically the way I look at growth, if you look at what people used to do like 15 years ago, if you've raised some money and you're kind of looking at scaling, typically you go out and you hire marketers, you hire salespeople, you hire potentially like SDRs, and you literally just throw people at it and you go, okay, we're going to just drive some more business and we're just going to hire a lot of people to do that. I've worked with a client that was not in that position. They were like, no, we're still bootstrapping. We don't want to bring investors just yet, but we need to kind of show growth in terms of revenue. So what I did is I've sat down with them and understood, try to understand like where we could get quick wins. So when I typically talk about quick wins, it's like, hey, you're targeting this specific market, but there is probably a it's probably going to take us 6 months to kind of get in front of the right people. And then you're going to have potentially a 6-month sales cycle. And so realistically, like when we talk about wins from a revenue perspective, it's probably going to take us like 6 to 9 months to actually show a result. So I've sat down with them and I say, okay, well, why don't we just look at what you've done in the past? What's your CRM looks like? Is there any quick wins we could get? And we've realized that they were sitting on about, I think it was something like 1,000 contacts that they've engaged with across the last 5 years that at the time they were just not ready to buy for, XYZ reason. So I was like, well, we know that they're your ICP in the sense that they were the right type of clients because they were interested in your product. There was some kind of business case for them to buy your product. They were just not ready to buy at the time. Why don't we just we enrich that data because some of those people might have moved on, so they might be in different businesses, but at least they've engaged with your brand. They know about you, and they were just not ready to buy at the time. So we've done a really quick like data enrichment project where we've kind of looked at have they changed jobs, have they still have the right kind of contact details. We've built like a sequence of messages through like LinkedIn and kind of cold emailing to re-engage with them. And I think out of 1,000 contacts, we've managed to enrich like 80% of those, which were still in a role that was kind of like relevant to what they were selling. And at the back of that, I think within a month, we've driven, I think it was like 20 meetings booked, and they've closed like, I think it was like $500,000 worth of revenue within 3 months.
Wow. That's amazing. And I think too, it's always really good to see results, because I think part of the end of the day is they're using this because they really want to explore and really just grow their wealth, or they want to grow their income in some way in their business. You know what I mean? So I think, and I tell people this too, like you have to learn, and as you're building, you're learning the experiences of things. And so, you're not going to build it in tomorrow, but over time, you're going to build something really, really good and really great for a lot of things, whether it be marketing, AI, any of those areas. I think just really practicing and really growing that also helps as well.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I think sometimes for me, it's like, obviously what I do in Media Lab is typically we talk about building engine, right? So it's very a long-term thing where the idea is like we typically try to build an engine that's just going to keep driving demand into your business.
Right.
But I come from a background where it's always been kind of performance-based in the sense that whatever you do, you need to, whatever dollars you're spending, at some point, someone's going to turn around and go, okay, well, what are we actually generating from a pipeline revenue perspective? And I think sometimes I'm like, okay, well, let's just prove that what we're doing works and let's focus on the quick win first. But let's keep in mind that what we're trying to build is a long-term engine that's just going to keep driving growth into your business. But I come from a business background where I don't want to tell you, and I've done a lot of work with, different agency where they go, hey, just give it some time. Let's just spend like $500,000 in marketing for the next 12 months. And at some point we're going to get results. And I'm like, well, what about, so I'm like, no. And then sometimes, especially when I work with like smaller kind of funders where, they're not sitting on millions of dollars in marketing budget. I'm like, okay, well, what about we try to get some quick win first and then find a system that works and then we can scale it up.
I think what everyone needs is a quick win on subjects. You know what I mean? Like if they don't get a quick win, then I feel like they just feel like it just doesn't work. You know what I mean? Because otherwise, if you're looking for a big win, forget it. It's kind of like game over.
Yeah. No. Exactly.
Yeah. Well, go ahead.
No, I was going to say because part of what we do at Media Lab as well is like we've got a we call it narrative engineering, which is realistically it's just like social media management, and the idea of like we use AI and automation to kind of like build a a social strategy, especially for like founder-led kind of startup, right? And as much as I know that it's a great product in the sense that being able to build a presence socially, whether it's like LinkedIn or Twitter or if it's, Instagram and Facebook, I think typically you can really drive a lot of engagement. But I'm always a bit concerned to start with this because I'm always like, it's going to take time. And I know it will. So the reality is like with those kind of like motions, like it's probably going to take you at least 6 months to really start building some presence online. As much as I know it works, it's never going to be something that I would go, hey, let's start with this. I'm always going to go, what about we do some, LinkedIn automation because I know I can get some quick meetings, and people go, okay, yeah, it works. And then the narrative engineering kind of solution typically comes as a kind of phase 2 and the only reason is just because I'm like always a bit scared to kind of propose something or start with something that's going to take time to actually build value or generate value to our clients. I don't know if that kind of makes sense when I kind of talk about it this way, which I know sometimes it's not necessarily the best way to position what we do, but it's like I'm always conscious about I want to be able to prove value of what we do very quickly because that's what our clients expect typically.
Absolutely. I think that's totally a real thing that, for any company that you provide real results, you're very quick because obviously they can see that they trust you in a lot of areas, so that's really good. All right, good. Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate the time you've given us and asked a lot of these really burning questions on how all this thing works. And I guess before we end up, because I love for people to know a little bit, get to know you better and maybe get to meet with you personally or how your company works. So where's the best place people can reach out to you?
Yeah, so best place is
for you.
Yeah, so best place is probably our website. So our website is www.medialabco.ai. And so yeah, you can email me. There is a place where you can book a demo, which is going to go to me or to my team. Obviously, presence on social, but my website, medialabco.ai, is probably the best place to start.
Awesome. Well, I really appreciate the time you've given us in learning all this stuff. And I thank everyone here for joining us and listening to this episode. If you guys like this, like and subscribe to this channel and give a thumbs up. And also check out Niko because I think Niko is a really amazing person. And, Niko, it was definitely an honor to talk to you.
No, likewise. It was great. Even if it was a little bit early for me this morning, but it was great. It was great to catch up and connect.
Awesome. Well, thank you. I really appreciate the time you've woken up and talked to us.
No problem at all. Thank you for having me.